I like when people show interest in it.
Mhm. Yes. So, Calavera, you work with past animals and even humans
Mhm.
in the sort that you have the remains
Yes.
and you are able to sense the spirits attached, how to connect them, and like how to not only work with them spiritually, but if they need sort of like healing even after death, like you work with them that way as well.
Yeah. It's it's like a death doula for the people that are already dead. Um, but yeah, I with remains in general, animal and human, it's if you're good at picking up energy, which I feel like that's something that you kind of have to learn before you really get into working with remains, is I would say the first step is getting in touch with like your intuition and how you feel energy. Um, because the energy that comes from remains, both animal and human, is very subtle. I think people think that, oh well, this there's this dead thing here, and it so it must be haunted. They think that like the soul like is still inhabiting the bones, and that's just not the case from what I have dealt with. I think it's funny how people like look at skulls and bones and they're like, well, I can't have that, I can't have that energy in the house, as if we are tied to our bones when we die. Which, when you think about it like that, it's funny. Same thing with like the people that go to cemeteries and they're like, oh well, um, it's creepy. There's so much activity here, and I'm like, these people are not tied to their remains. Like, it's not a thing. But with working with remains of both animal and human, you work with what's called residual energy. I think there's another word for it too, but I usually just call it like residual, where it's like energy left over from the life and the imprint that creature, human and animal, has made for themselves.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's a really good description as far as all of that with the residual energy, and that kind of relates to the paranormal with the ghost or investigating into. You have your residual hauntings, which are just like you said, a timestamp.
Yeah.
So me, I have sassafras here, and like when you first started talking to me about this, actually, what I should say is she has a class at Goddess Elite, and I took her class, and I was so interested in everything that she had taught about the remains and more about respect and everything, that I'm learning the value not only for myself, but for the remains of the animal or human. In your case, you even work with humans. The value of working with them, because some of them lost something in life, and
Mhm.
you can help them to feel that. Is that correct? Am I making sense?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So just like how we go through hardships and stuff in our life, some people, the end of their life, their passing is even hard, or they had a traumatic death. Um, like you said, it's like a timestamp, and you also have to think like with human and animal, like we literally grow these things or bones throughout baby all the way through adult. So those bones hold trauma and growth.
Whoops.
Oh.
Sorry.
They hold trauma, growth, um, a bunch of like the things, the happy moments, the sad moments, and all that is kind of stamped throughout life. So especially towards the end, uh, I feel like our bones really hold the emotions and the energy of our kind of like final years and final moments.
And
Uh,
in some instances, those imprints they can also be lessons
Mhm.
that can be shared with the holder, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, which is
Mhm.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
so Amy says, I have my brother, dad, niece, part of my stepdaughter, 3 cats, 3 dog ashes with me. It doesn't bother me. And I mean, that's great, but those are loved ones, right?
Yes.
Would it be different if you think, because you have remains, obviously, of people that are not part of your family.
Mhm.
So, like, how did you manage to obtain those remains and it not become a problem in the house of like, "Dude, I don't know you. Why am I here? I'm gonna knock all your shit down
Yes.
and, I'm gonna become a problem."
Yeah. Um, so again, this is kind of like where that like energy feeling comes in, getting in touch with your intuition, your emotions. Cause like I could see all the remains that I have at least seen through a screen before I purchased said remains. So being able to work with the energy even through the phone, being able to see like what the feeling that you get from those types of remains. A lot of the time, a lot of the reasons why some of these remains feel heavy is because there was some sort of grief in life. And it's, to me, I've put it on my own shoulders to be like, well, let's like heal that. Let's let that pass. Let's let that pass on. Let's filter that through. Um, I have human ashes from people that I don't know at all, but their family. Which, by the way, to kind of give like ethics, it is legal in the state of Ohio to own human remains. Um, and to buy and to sell, but there are no states. I think there's like 4 or 5. So definitely make sure before you purchase anything, including animal, because there's even states that like you can't have bear, you can't have hyena. So know your laws before you end up purchasing anything. I definitely feel like there's some sort of poor repercussion for trying to buy something that you legally should not be able to purchase. You take that energy with you as well.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Yeah, listening to you talk about that, doing it the right way. You have to understand it. And that was
correct.
one of the things that I appreciated when you did that class is teaching the right. And I even asked you, I said, can you get me a hawk skull? And you're like, oh no, 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 no. You can't do that. But the thing that I found interesting is when you are looking for these remains and you're doing like talking through the phone and everything, it almost sounds like an adoption process.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's very, very similar to a adoption process where like you're looking through a shelter and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, I feel an attachment to this one and this one in particular, or the story that attaches to that person. For example, the remains of a man that I have, the person who ended up selling these remains, he was very honest about the life of this person and how he wasn't the greatest person in life. He was very sick, and because of the um, the mental illness, he made very terrible choices throughout his life. And no, people. I like when people are for sure like this is the life that this person lived. This is how they obtain this. Figuring out how people obtain their remains too is really important because we have found out this year that grave robbing is still a thing, and very much active, because the not only the cost of the jewelry, and gold and silver, but also there is a heavy price on human remains themselves for collectors. So making sure you know that how your remains are obtained. Another thing that uh, people think that everything comes with paperwork. That is not the case. You can still get legally acquired remains without paperwork. Most of the time, paperwork comes with medical For example, if we're going off of humans, medical specimens that went through the whole process of paper handling, and also hoping that those pieces of paper stay on file for you to have when you obtain those things. But odds are a lot of these remains have been around for so long that that has gotten lost along the way. Um, so you can always ask about paperwork, but just because you can't get it doesn't mean that it wasn't obtained ethically. I can also go into the super deep depths of the ethics of human remains. Are they truly, acquired ethically? We don't really know. Some of these people lost autonomy over their body, and the schools were like, oh, well, we'll use that for anatomy and physiology training, because this person has nowhere to go. Is that something they wanted in life? We don't know. So there's a whole lot of deep dives into ethics that we can go and truly talk about how ethical obtaining of ethically sourced human remains there are. But that is where I believe that the healing process comes through when it comes to obtaining these remains and being able to cleanse and clear of the, we'll say that the negative energy that has been stuck to said bones.
Mhm.
So Melanie has the ashes of both of her dogs in her china cabinet, and she's wondering, like, how can I tell if the spirits of my dogs are coming to visit me?
Oh, so I feel like that's a really like personal experience because, for example, like how did your dogs act in life? They usually personalities usually don't change. Once people have passed on, the personality of that person usually stays the same. So, was that dog loud and rambunctious? Did they knock things over in life? Odds are they're going to do the exact same thing in death when they're coming to visit you. Um, I also believe that even like with crystals and bones in itself, you have to be willing to work with those things if you want to really feel the energy of those things. So if the dogs are collecting dust in the china cabinet, you haven't thought about them in a long time, you really don't go over there and give them much attention, the odds of them coming through, and you being able to feel it is lessened because you're not forming or continuing to build that bond with your deceased loved ones. So making sure that you, if you want that, making sure that you continue to tend to the remains, whether that be just walking by, saying hi, dusting, um, you know, putting a picture over there, like next to them, a treat. Like it's very much very similar to how we tend and feed an altar with offerings. Hi, how are you? Here's a candle. And, moving on from that. So definitely keeping your relationship strong with your past loved ones is really going to make an effect as to how well you can feel them visiting you.
She's like, they're my babies. So I'm sure she's thinking on them very often.
Oh.
Amy asks if it's bad to separate ashes. And I know this happens more with humans where, grandma gets cremated and everybody gets a little bit of grandma.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, um,
I,
you
so ethically, I do not think that there's like you don't like we always make jokes. We're like you get a foot and you get an arm, and like that's the joke. But like the soul is so complex that grandma is with everybody who has a little bit of those ashes. It's all been a part of her at one point. So I do not believe that it is unethical or wrong to separate ashes. A lot of people do. You get this person that has more of dad than this person, but that doesn't mean that dad is unable to pass on because part of his ashes are here. I think we also have to remember that your bones are just a vessel for the spirit. And that doesn't, whether you're cremated or buried, that doesn't make a difference. Your soul still does what it needs to do at the end of life and what you believe in as we go. So
Yeah, I was gonna
Hmm.
say, I think it would be more of a personal choice of the person that passed, right? You know, you better
Correct.
not break me up, or everybody gets a part of me except for that one. They get
Correct.
nothing.
And definitely the people, like, honoring wishes of what someone wants, I feel like is really, really important to the passing on of a person. So, for example, if grandma does not want to get cremated and it's a cheaper option at the end of her funeral and you end up cremating her anyway, odds are grandma's going to be real pissed about that. So, it's also honoring the wishes of said person, making sure they get what they want. I know that I would be mad if I'm like, nope, I don't want to be cremated. Just here you go, put me in the ground. And I end up finding out that I'm like, well, they didn't listen to me or they didn't care. So I think that plays a part too.
Hmm.
I think you're more liable to be haunted by grandma.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're not following paperwork wishes.
Yep.
Um, Kathy, did you have any other questions while I scroll and see if I've
Sure.
missed anything
Uh,
in chat?
well, one of the things I was thinking about is, okay, we're talking about the process and everything, and you know, the remains and stuff, and how you acquire them the right way, the wrong way, the spirit, this timestamp and everything. Okay, and the adoption process. I kind of like that idea because you do connect the adoption process and everything. Okay, now you're taking it home. What from there?
So I think this also goes to the individual. I will say I have not cleansed any of my bones with traditional smoke. Um, you're gonna hear my cat.
Hi, kitty. Hi.
With traditional smoke cleansing, the Florida water, things along those lines. Um, to me, there is just something that stops me from doing that. And I think that is because there is still that residual energy there that I do not feel is right tampering with. That's like me, like, you know, I would be upset if my remains are required and I look at them as, oh, you're ewy and icky and whatever's attached to this, I want to get rid of. So that's where I think that getting in touch with your energy prior to is also really important. What are your intentions too? Some people will literally just get bones because it's aesthetically really cool and edgy. And I don't think, and this is just my opinion, but human remains or remains in general being used as nothing but strictly decor is where things get a little touchy. I can't say I'd be super happy with my skull just being on display in someone's basement because it looks cool. Um,
You mean you don't wanna be part of the Paris catacombs that are nothing but bones,
those
you
are
know?
really, that's really cool. Oh my gosh, I could get so into that too. Um, but first off, really cool decor. But they also are really, really careful about how they you tend to those catacombs as well. There's like a respect there too, versus the people
Mhm.
that just kind of like bring it home and they're like,
Okay.
so we're just gonna mount that there, and without like building that bond.
Mhm.
But all that to say, as far as cleansing and anything goes, that is entirely up to said person. But I don't feel like it's a need.
Yeah, and I think with what you're saying, with it being a personal thing, I think when you have that connection, you will know if it's right.
Right.
Hmm. So,
Now, when you're like, hanging up as decor, I'm immediately thinking of hunters
mhm,
who
mhm.
hang the deer skulls with the big racks up there,
Hmm.
but have the personal belief of, like, everything that we do is wrong and is evil and it's not of God, but yet you kind of are essentially inviting the spirit of that animal into your house by hanging and I've been into some houses where I'm like, "You got, like, 7 of them up there." Like, I bet the land's mad at you. Um, Especially when they're just for trophy, like, they're not even processing and eating the rest of the animal. They're just literally, like, rest of the body waste. I want to hang this up here so I can proclaim how great of a hunter I am.
Because it has 8 points. Like,
Yeah, because I use the high-powered rifle from, like, 50 yards away or whatever. Don't come for me, not a gun person, whatever. But, it's not like you fought this animal, you used a gun,
yeah,
So, I always found that kind of interesting and kind of smirky. I'm like, "I am evil, um, because of your book, however, you have trophies of deaf things hanging on your wall."
right, right. And it's exactly that. It's how, for example, like how you process it. I am not a hater on people that hunt, especially people that hunt for not only the sport of it, but also like you are now feeding your family with said remains, using as much of it as possible before you end up having the skeleton, as the frame. Um, so that I know that's could piss off like a lot of people, but exactly that, like you have this thing mounted up on the wall just because you want to show off your achievement of I did this, and like you said, essentially inviting that spirit of probably a really upset and pissed off animal into your home. And I think people automatically think anger from said spirit, but there's also like sadness that will also alter the energy of a home. Scared is an energy. Something usually before it dies like that, especially if it doesn't die right off the rip, there's a lot of fear, and that is imprinted into what you also bring into the home.
Mhm. And I was on the other side of that, Melissa. I was married to a hunter. And I think a lot of it has to do with lack of knowledge, lack of understanding. And it's just like what you're saying about, oh, they think we're evil, well, and so forth. It's the lack of knowing and understanding that makes people evil when it comes to this type of work and everything. But prior to my getting involved in this and everything, I had deer head on my walls but I also ate what he brought home.
Mhm.
I mean, it filled our freezers. It fed, my kids and stuff like that. But knowing what I know now, like I said, it's all about knowledge and understanding. Knowing what I know now, I see it differently as far as having that on the wall.
Mhm.
But and I'm glad you said trophy because I was gonna say that. They're trophies. When it comes to hunters, it's trophies on the wall. What Calavera does is completely different. She has these and she's showing respect and she's showing caring and she's showing love and things like that. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but I just put it there.
Well, it's like I don't invite people over and then be like, you want to see this human skull? Like
Right.
it's different when it comes to, I'm very, very respectful. I think I've learned the skulls that are cool with people, the skulls that are not cool with people, the ones that are okay with being handled, the ones that aren't. Again, that's where you bring your energy feelers out there to feel tension or resistance when it comes to what this energy is okay with. Um, so yeah, so I have some that I'm like, I will never leave the house with you again. Um, and it's just sometimes it's trial and error. You might end up with a little angry spirit for a little bit. But then you kind of fix that bond and like, okay, I realize that you're not okay with being shown to other people. You're not okay with being the topic of discussion. You're not okay with me even holding you all that often. So that's all right. So that's how you keep the bond with that residual energy too.
Mhm.
Now, I think you did bring one of your human skulls for the class that you did, but in general, like when you're doing readings for people, because you're, the crystal skull reader, and I can't remember, have you brought like one of the human skulls in for like a regular reading day?
I have not yet. um, it's as much as I am so okay with that, and that's like right up my alley. Um, I also have to remember, and also as people that deal with human remains, that it is so taboo um, to the average people. I wish it was more like normalized. The way that people prepare and dig up remains in other parts of the country versus here, where death is seen as this very scary, sad thing. And that is the image that a lot of people are left with, is that death is scary. Um, I have to remember that some people are of that belief. And so I try to be respectful. Do I have skulls that definitely would love to come in for a reading? Absolutely. But we also are on the same page that, like, maybe there's a right time and place. Hopefully, people also get to know me well enough as a reader that they're like, she's weird. She's probably going to have something weird in that room at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll be the guinea pig.
Yeah, right.
So, now I'm wondering, I'm like, do we have a little message box on booking to where if they booked with you, they could put in there, like, bring the human skull?
That
I'm
would
gonna
be
have to do
cool.
that.
That
We
would be
need that.
cool.
We need like a little like a an urgency note that pops up that's like, could be dead things there. We don't know.
Sign a waiver, and they have to acknowledge that before the booking goes through, like,
That would
"You
be
do
cool.
understand that this may be on the table. You agree."
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Hi,
Mhm.
Blaze. Do you find that the message work from, like, the crystal skulls are different in any way, shape, or form than if it was from one of the human skulls, the type of guidance, the type of information they may have to offer?
Yeah, it is a little different. I would say if you ever want to work with human remains, but you don't want to purchase any, the closest you can definitely come to is a crystal skull, because it all of the crystal skulls they house a consciousness, they house a spirit, and it's the same thing with human skulls. The only thing is you don't really get to choose what that is. So with crystal skulls, that spirit inhabits the crystal skull itself. You can even go through whole processes on bringing in a specific type of spirit into your crystal skull. With human and animal skulls, it comes with the personality of that specific individual. There is no clearing of that skull out to bring in a different spirit. Uh, I find that they're also a little bit more where I can work with the crystal skulls, ask, hey, show me a little bit more of this, or I've built a bond with that spirit and that crystal skull for so long that I'm able to um, kind of like manipulate that energy a little bit. With human remains, it's very strict. Like, this is how I'm showing you, and I am really not changing it for you. So either figure it out or don't. Um, that type.
Okay, so I'm intrigued. Because I understand the human remains and things like that, but then we go into the crystals, the crystal skulls and things like that, and you're talking about bringing the spirit and their spirit in those. How does the spirit get there? I mean,
how do we put the spirit in the skull? So
yes.
some crystal skulls will come with a spirit already inhabiting the skull, and that's why you feel you so for example, there are skulls that I have that, like, I don't really love the crystal, I don't really love the carving, but there is a reason why that skull was like, hey, so, like, what's up? And it's not because of necessarily what the skull looks like, but of the spirit that's inhabiting the crystal skull. So some come with spirits already attached. Some come as just an empty vessel where you don't really feel anything other than crystal energy. And then you can invite a spirit in. With that being said, there's usually a whole like ritual or ceremony that you can do for something like that.
Mhm.
I primarily don't work with skulls that don't have something already attached. A lot of my crystal skulls that I do have some that are just empty vessels, and I don't plan on putting anything in there. But I do have crystal skulls that very much came to me because of the spirit that already inhabits it.
So basically, and I'm saying this to help me understand. So basically, it's like when I pick up a crystal,
Mhm,
we're just going to use a crystal. I can feel the energy in that crystal.
mhm.
Is it basically the same with skulls? Is it that type of energy, or is it a different type of energy? Or I mean, I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand.
So no, no. So working with crystal skulls, I feel like is so different between working with just a normal crystal. It's the way that it's carved. It's the consciousness that is able to house it. Um, I wish I could describe it more than that, other than like a feeling, where the energy from crystal skulls feels more like a spirit type of energy versus a crystal energy. Um, I wish I could describe it as more than that. I feel like it's something you kind of have to experience. If you
Mhm.
know uh, what working with a spirit feels like, or communicating with a spirit feels like, it's very vastly different from working with crystal energy. Um, it's a little bit more complex. Um, so when I pick up a crystal skull and I look at it, usually what you end up doing is like looking into the eyes of the skull and kind of bringing yourself into that consciousness to see if anything's there.
Okay.
I also believe that some skulls will remain dormant until they find their person. So I might look into the eyes of a crystal skull and not feel anything, but the person next to me might feel a very, very strong attachment. And it's kind of like that even with the bones too. There are certain bones that I'm drawn to, certain animals that I'm drawn to versus something else. Kind of like in my class, we talked about animals that you would use as far as the remains for protection. And it was so interesting because everyone was so vastly different. So I would not pick up a fox skull for protection. However, Kathy, that was the first animal that came to her mind. So it's very interesting how everyone kind of varies when it comes to working with certain types of crystal energy and certain types of bone and remain energy.
Mhm. You described that really well with the crystals. It made sense to me after a little while. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to have to take notice to that a little bit closer and really try to connect with those things a little bit better. Just see if I can pick up on it.
Yeah.
It's because I'm sitting here looking at tables of heads, right? And why do you guys feel different? And I'm like, okay, so the ones that definitely have regular inhabitants, there's like an effervescent feeling
Mm-hmm.
to them versus just the crystal feeling that is still a lighter feeling, but I don't want to say heavier, but it's not poppy fizzly
Yeah.
for me.
Mhm.
So, neither one is better than the other, but those with little spirits, now mind you, none of them are human that have come in. I'm like, right, 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 right. Okay. Um, they are effervescent feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
I would be curious to see how a human one would feel. Or if because nothing, well, I can't say that. I did for shits and giggles trap a ghost in here that was messing with stuff. But I don't really, it's more of like I know you're here and you're being a pain in my ass, but to feel them, I don't really feel them any sort of way. So now I'm like, ooh, to have one with a human in it versus one with another type of spirit, how that would feel, and that's something I have to learn. And so, our friends with us who are like, do I have something? Like, you would literally have to sit there and feel it to know what that difference is. And now I kind of want to be like, all right, Sierra, or Calavera, we need to do a thing where if any of your human pieces are willing to come in and be like, I'm willing to be the guinea pig, so people can learn to feel that that difference is for them.
Hmm.
Hot, cold, heavy, dark, spinkly, prickly. It's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, that's exactly like a great way of putting it. A lot of working with just energy in general is just like so personal because everyone feels it so differently. Um, the the feelings I get from bones is I don't it just feels like a friend. It feels like a familiar, like, and that's why I feel like I'm so drawn to them. I've always been, weirdly enough, just always been interested in the human skull. The image I thought was really neat, like ever since I was young. And then going into school and taking anatomy and learning all about it, and then still growing into myself and now owning human skulls. Um, it's usually not something that someone just like picks up one day and they're like, I'm into this now. It's usually something that you have been either gradually working into or something that you've been drawn into. um, and you can usually kind of like tie back as to when that started. But it's like, okay, tying back that feeling of what I felt when I went to this cemetery. Try going to a cemetery and seeing how you feel around certain spirits. It's very, very similar to how you're going to feel with remains.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Guys, if you have any questions or comments, um, feel free to pop them in there. Um, I mean, now I'm really kind of like, what is one going to feel like that? Um, I
Mhm.
do want to bring up, so a new fun trend, if you want to call it trendy, is the oddity shows everywhere, right? So people are exploring, they're going in, what exactly is this? What is that? And so you're able to buy,
Hmm.
I don't think I've seen human remains at any of these shows,
No.
but different, animals. What should they do before they even go in? Either, protecting themselves, having an idea of what they might be looking for before they go in, or if they're like, I'm looking like Kathy, I want a fox. Like, but which one? Here's a table of 8. How do you pick the right one? So what should people be doing before they even pay their admission fee in for these oddity shows?
That's a really good question. Definitely knowing what you want and what you're looking for. So, for example, do I want a spirit for protection? Do I want a spirit that helps me with psychic ability? Going into it and knowing what you're looking for, and also tying that animal to that thing. So, for example, for me, I'm not going to get a bear for psychic intuition. To me, that doesn't correlate. For someone else, they might say yes. So it's knowing what you want it for, and also making sure you have the space for it. I think that's also a big concern. Is I don't feel like any of your remains should be on the floor. I feel like it's kind of disrespectful in a way. Definitely have a space for them, where you can accommodate them. Um, and then obviously your budget. Uh, if I can't afford a hyena because I really want a hyena, what am I going to be able to get that's going to bring me the same energy? And then just going in with an open mind. Um, you have to go in with the mindset that what you are going to be drawn to, or what you want, is going to be drawn to you. I know when I went to an oddity show earlier in the year that I wanted a bear. I didn't really care what type. I just know I wanted a bear. And how the one came to me was very, very interesting, because the one I chose would not be the one that normal people would choose due to the damage. but there was an energy attached. So to give a brief synopsis, went in looking for a bear. I want something for protection. That's what I'm. Bears to me are very, very protective creatures. And that was what I was looking for. So I go to a table, and this guy is a, now I won't say that he does things ethically by some of the damage from the skulls that I have seen. This is definitely someone who is in the field of hunting and then buying remains from hunters, not really caring how he's obtaining them. That's also something you have to go into if you want to ask those questions to the vendor. Do you know how this was obtained? Odds are they're going to say no unless they did it themselves. The one that I was drawn to first was a really young black bear. Um, Also, kind of knowing, like, do you want female? Do you want male? That's also going to be important too, if that's important. I didn't care necessarily. But it was a young black bear. It was covered in like a varnish, so it was glossy. His skull was in beautiful condition. And then I looked down because I'm feeling called to this other bear who is a completely different, it's a black bear, but more mature. The face was different, a lot older. And I'm flipping her around, and she's the same cost as the young one who's varnished and lacquered and no injuries, not missing any teeth. And she has the side of her head like missing, like blown out. And only if I could put two and two together, there is an entry hole here with a blowout side here. So she was shot as her way of passing. Talking to the owner of the vendor, asking him like the difference, like, what is this versus what is this? Why does this one look different from this one? Now, of course, he's not going to bring up the bullet hole in her head, but he did tell me this is female. She was a lot older, and instantly my mind went to, I need her. There's work I have to do with her. And that's going to be our trade. I'm going to give you a good home where you're going to be loved and cherished and cared for, and we're going to work on healing that soul. Such a traumatic and scary way to die. And in return, can you help me with what I need you for? I would love protective bear energy, and then building that bond. So that's a long story to say that you might even go in knowing what you want, and it might not be what you need, and something else might call you else entirely. So
Yes. So Chris asked, do you feel this is the energy of what these animals represent and stood for, or do you believe that this is the actual spirit of the animal that is with the remains?
I feel like it's a combination of both, because there's also a reason why we look at bears as courageous and brave and protective. So the energy of what that animal stands for, because it lives that life. We don't say that, bears are wild and free like wild horses. That's a very different energy. So, and then also working with the spirit of that particular animal as well. So odds are the personality of that other bear that I could have gotten was going to be entirely different from the one that I have. So it's like a combination of both is what I want to say.
So Melanie, and it's funny because I'm like, yeah, me too. She's like, when I do my photo shoots at Bonaventure Cemetery, I always ask the person's permission before I take pictures of their stones. And, thinking back to when in my younger years and I had more time, me and my best friend, like we would kind of drive around at night and we would sneak into cemeteries. We weren't damaging, we weren't vandalizing. We would just literally drive in, go find somewhere to sit and talk for hours in the quiet, in the peace. And one of the ones that we always went to, there was a bench. And one of the first ones, I'm like, I can sit here. Okay. And without even thinking about it, had asked permission. And that's, where we sat. Um, but I mean, I get it. I kind of resonate with that.
Yeah.
Um, in watching fireworks this year, the best shot was like in the cemetery across the street. And as pulling in and pulling out the chairs, the first thing I'm doing, and I'm like, am I going to be on anybody? Nope. You know,
Mhm.
walking through a cemetery, I don't walk on the headstones or where the body would be in front of it. You
Mhm.
know, um, it is a respect thing, even in cemeteries, right? So I get it. I absolutely get it. Um, Lisa says, I have two deer skulls, one decorated as a ward that you have done, Calavera, and
Mhm.
one naturally found, who's Carl. So, did you intend for the one that she has for a ward to be used in that manner, or you decorated it and said, "What do you want me to put on you?" And Lisa was like, "Haha, ward."
So with my not human, animal remains that I paint, because we ain't painting human remains, that I ask the animal, like, is this something that you want? And then my paintings, I let the spirit of that animal lead the way. So some of them have more jagged lines, some are a little bit more smooth. Some want me to work with this color. Now, I also, with my protective ones, I have also collected graveyard dirt from a cemetery in which I have asked for permission from said person. Because we can also go into that. And I mix it into the paint. So I'm bringing in the warding protectiveness of that spirit and also putting it into the paint of that I'm now painting this animal skull with. So lots of spirit activity in that itself, but all of which prior to me using any specific colors or even painting at all has been asked of the spirit prior, because there have been at one point I had gotten a batch of coyote and there was some that were like, nope, don't touch me at all, like just put me out. And then there were some that were like, yeah, I'm cool with, we can do this, I like this would be a really cool, like, yeah. So some of them are okay with it, some of them are not, and it's respecting of those things and not forcing it upon that energy, that spirit, just because you feel like this design would look really cool. Some of them don't want to be touched.
Don't bedazzle me.
Yep.
Yeah. She had the skull on a live sale one evening, and I heard the name Fred, so I had to come get him.
Aw.
Do you
Um,
have
we
do you
are-
have something there?
Do
huh?
I?
Yeah.
I got a person.
I thought so.
I have a person on my lap.
Yeah. Um, Now's the time for any last minute questions for Calavera, because I just looked and I'm like, "Ooh, we are almost done." And I know
No,
Kathy
we're fast.
Oishar always wants you, and Calavera's got to get to the store, and I need to get to the store here soon. Um,
Yeah,
so if you have any,
I definitely think we should set up something if someone wants to like feel what human remains feel like. That would be really, really cool.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely. So I have a question. It goes outside of the bones and things like that. What about like the skin, the fur of animals, like um, bear skin, things like that?
Hmm.
People get a lot of people bring it home because they want a rug, a bear skin rug, or something like that. Can you use those type of things the same as you are with the bones and things like that?
I think very much so. When I worked with hides, it's a little bit of a different energy. Um, it's to me when I am working with hides or things like that, um, it's more so the energy of that animal and what it stands for is almost like a symbology in a symbolic type of way versus the skull or the bones. Uh, if that is your way of wanting to kind of like get into remain type of work, I think that's a really, really good way for you to get comfortable with working with things like that. If you're not ready to step into the realm of bones, same thing with like snake sheds. If you don't want to work necessarily with a snake skull, you can work with a snake shed. It's going to be a little bit different than how it would be working with bones and things that have grown with said animal, um, versus something that kind of sheds over time. Like same thing with hides. Fur, it's not the same type of fur that that animal had ever since it was a baby. It has since then
Right.
shed. So um, it's a softer type of feeling than working with something like skulls or bones.
Mhm. Yeah, and the reason why I asked is, ever since I did take your class and everything, it has opened my eyes, like I said, about respect,
Mhm.
respecting the spirit. And my granddaughter, who is 12 years old, we were at the Viking show, and there was a wolf head and fur, and she's very, very sensitive to animals, sensitive in not like picking up energy, sensitive as insensitive.
Oh,
And it was heartbreaking to her to see that, that was there. And I took what you were teaching and kind of flipped it into that
hmm,
and was like, yes, it's very sad, it's very traumatic what that poor wolf went through and everything, but there's still spirit that remains with that, and you can still give it love.
yes.
And it was like it almost like took a sadness away from her, and she went over and sat down and started petting its head.
Oh,
So is that's the right thing to do, correct? I
100%.
mean, I guess but and it's also teaching her, yeah, there's a lot of bad things that happen in this world.
Hmm.
Um, and but you can still do something good with it.
Yes, like you
Yeah.
can still make an impact after passing, just
Mhm.
like how people that pass, RIP Dolly, um, make an impact after they pass. It's the exact same thing that we can do for them.
Mhm.
Um, there's, things we can do like death rites. If that's something that you're ever interested in, necromancy is not this scary thing that everybody is like, oh, you're reanimating a corpse. Like necromancy is calling in of a specific spirit, that you can then call in to do healing work with. So I think that that's also super important too. Is it's not just a what can you do for me, but what can I do for you as well.
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
a contract.
I
Right.
kind of feel like when people are like, "Oh, I work with my dead grandmother and she helps me do this or that," or how to heal like my sick grandbaby. And I always kind of snicker when then they're like, "Ooh, and I'm like, "You're doing necromancy light.
Yes, necromancy light.
You are calling in a past being to help guide you with something else, necromancy light."
Mhm.
But it's kind of funny the terminology of spiritual work or working with ancestors versus necromancy. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell everybody a secret. Mediumship is just necromancy. It's literally with necromancy, you're calling in a specific like person, which is what a lot of people ask for when they come in. They want to talk to this person. They want to talk to this person. So by a medium calling in that specific person for you that you wish to speak to, that is necromancy. Hate to break it to you for all the people that are scared of that, but that is ultimately what it is. Necromancy
yeah.
is a little bit more ritualistic, but like you said, necromancy light. You are experiencing it.
Mhm.
Well, on that fun note, I just looked at the time and we need to get rolling. Thank you guys for joining us. We will be back next week, and I should have pulled up what's going on next week. I do not have that, but we will be back with another guest at 10 a.m. with more woo woo topics. Do you have it, Kathy?
It's Tim Shaw.
Oh, there we
Tim
go. Yay.
Shaw. Yeah. Yeah, he'll be joining us. I'm not sure what his topic will be because he does a lot of different things. So we'll see what well he'll probably talk about everything, knowing him.
We may just have to sit back and let him just
Oh
do
yeah,
the thing.
we can do
So,
that with Tim. He loves. I don't know if you all know who he is, but he's a wonderful guy. Actually, grew up in Lilydale, I believe, and he's a dowser. Does pendulums. He's a uh, psychic medium. He's a paranormal investigator. Like I said, he pretty much does it all. But good guy, really, really good guy.
I've known his name as a paranormal investigator. So like just learning that he grew up on Lilydale is news to me. And then I have a whole other set of questions about Lilydale that I would love
Mhm.
to ask probably off camera.
Yes, and I think he may be able to fill you in on things.
So, but thank you guys for joining us and join us next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Well, we'll have Tim Shaw. So bring your questions about paranormal investigations, maybe some psychic medium, or if you've been to Lilydale, maybe come see what somebody who grew up there has to maybe say about that. But we hope to see you next week, and we'll see you guys then.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Calavera.
You're welcome.